At this point in time, we could very well be on the verge of the largest housing market crash in history, but there are a few reasons why a lot of people say that this isn't going to happen. And I wanted to talk about this a little bit today because I think a lot of these excuses and reasons of why people say there won't be a housing crash in the future, I think that a lot of these reasons are kind of weak, especially because a lot of them are very temporary. So I wanted to go over some of them with you guys and give you my feedback on it, because this is a lot of the things that you hear the mainstream media saying. You also hear a lot of this from people who are super optimistic about the housing market and say that there's no way things can ever come down. So let's take a look at what people are saying and why, and see if there's any validity to any of this. The first thing is that inventory is still very low. Now, to me, that is the one and only reason that we haven't seen a housing crash yet, because the demand has clearly gone away with the amount of closed sales and mortgage applications we've been seeing. But because we have low inventory, it's able to keep this housing market sustained at these prices because there's just not enough places to buy in most areas, which helps keep the prices higher. Because there are still a good amount of people out there who do want to buy, even though not nearly as many as before. And we can see that inventory has actually been on the rise when you zoom out. Because back in 2022, we only had about a 1.7 month supply of inventory on the market. But fast forward to October's data from the National Association of Realtors, now we have 3.6 month supply of homes for sale. So things are improving. In fact, the inventory has doubled in about a year and a half. So if things continue like this, where you see a lot of new listings come up, but not enough people to buy them, we very well could see the inventory double again over the next couple of years, which would then reverse things into being a buyer's market. And so this point is technically still true, that inventory is at very low levels. But the thing is, guys, we have to pay attention to two things. Number one, we're starting to see some anomalies happen with inventory that I've already pointed out a few times before. And one of them is that we're in a situation now where inventory is still staying steady and actually going up ever so slightly at the end of the year, which is something that we never really seen happen before. When we look at historical inventory data, starting by the end of summer and into fall and winter, the amount of inventory on the market always goes down. It always falls. But this year it's not doing that, because I think now the housing market has fundamentally broken to the point where we have killed demand enough, and enough people still out there want to sell, that we're starting to see the listings continue to tick up, even though it's not a lot, but it's happening at a time of year when we normally don't see it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing is, if you saw my video yesterday about these two couples that still bought and sold homes right now, even though the market is upside down, and their reasoning for doing so is probably relatable to a lot of people out there who are thinking about doing the same thing right now. And so the other half of this story is that there's always going to be inventory cycling into the market because life goes on. People in this story that I was telling you guys about voluntarily gave up their 3% interest rates for 6.5% rates because they needed to move. They needed to move for their family. They needed to move because they didn't like where they lived anymore. They couldn't take the weather. Whatever their reasons are, it doesn't matter. But people have reasons, and they're not going to stay put forever, guys. That's going to continually be the story of why you're going to see more people continue to give up their, so-called golden handcuffs and 3% interest rates. People are not going to hold on to them forever, despite what you're being told. Now, the second thing that they use as an excuse of why there will be no housing market crash is because builders didn't build quickly enough to meet the demand. Because the reality is, the amount of home building has gone down substantially ever since the last housing market crash that we saw back in 2008. But we are still seeing a substantial amount of building happening right now, and we're also seeing a lot of permitting happening for the requests for new builds to come online. So it's not like home builders have completely given up and they're not building anymore. They're building more now than they have in the last 15 years, and eventually that supply is going to hit the market. And when it does, you're going to have additional homes out there available for sale, especially on the resale market, combined with the people who already want to sell. Well, there you go, guys. We are fixing the inventory problem little by little, and the problem is it's not going to be overnight. The only way that the inventory problem is going to be fixed overnight is if we see a massive recession with high unemployment and people are forced to sell their homes. That will take the inventory from 0 to 100 within a few months. Now, the third reason they say there won't be a housing crash is because demographic trends are creating new buyers. Check this out. It says many Americans who already own homes decided during the pandemic they needed bigger houses, especially with the rise of working from home. Millennials are a huge group and in their prime buying years, and Hispanics are a growing demographic, also keen on home ownership. So yeah, while it might be true that millennials are a giant demographic and we have all these immigrants pouring into the country that want to be homeowners, that's the thing, guys. Just because people want to own a home doesn't mean that they're going to be able to unless they have the income to afford it. That's something that everybody needs to understand that's not being talked about, because you just hear how, oh, the demographics, you know, everybody wants to own a home. Well, yeah, everybody wants to be a millionaire and win the lottery too, but that doesn't happen to the vast majority of people. Now, obviously, owning a home is a lot more attainable than potentially winning the lottery, but you get the idea. It's the same concept. So to me, it doesn't really matter how many people want something if they can't actually get it. And we can see proof of this happening right now, which is why we've seen home sales crater, because even though all these people out there want to buy a home, a lot of them cannot buy a home at these prices and rates. So the only way that any of these people who aspire to own a home are going to be able to are, number one, either massively increasing their income and their financial well-being to be able to buy at these prices, or more likely to happen, the prices will have to come down to meet the buyer where they're at. Now, this fourth reason is just a joke to me. It's pretty funny, actually. And they say that lending standards remain strict. Okay. In 2007, liar loans in which borrowers didn't need to document their income were common. Lenders offered mortgages to just about anyone, regardless of their credit history or down payment size. Today, lenders impose tough standards on borrowers, and those who are getting a mortgage overwhelmingly have excellent credit. Now, when it comes to the credit part of this, the lending standards are tougher, and it says here that the median credit score for new mortgage borrowers in the second quarter of 2023 had a 770 credit score. So that is very good. And they say, well, we don't have to worry about prices being bid up by the artificial buying power of loose lending standards. That's when we have to worry about a crash. Oh no, we don't have to worry about the loose lending standards. We just got to worry about all of the free money that was given out during the pandemic and how people are getting massive incentives and bonuses to be able to buy homes at today's prices and rates still. None of that counts though, right? None of that pushes us into crash territory. I mean, this one is just flat out not true, guys, because I see a lot of mortgage companies right now that are bending over backwards to give people mortgages for as little as 1% down. We've talked about this on the channel. Zillow's doing it. United Wholesale Mortgage is doing it. Rocket Mortgage is doing it. They're all giving people 1% down mortgages with less than stellar income and credit, because those are the people that supposedly qualify for those type of loans, and they're putting those people into houses right now. So when you give people that don't really have a high income a house, they're more likely to have financial problems, especially when the house starts having problems. So to say that the lending standards are strict today and that's the reason why we're not going to see a housing crash is an absolute joke, because even though, yeah, people can't do liar loans anymore, we still have a lot of programs that are kind of made in the image of those programs of the past. Like, for example, people can buy investment properties today with no income or credit requirements, okay? If the property supposedly cash flows, you can buy that property as long as you have the down payment. That's one similar type of loan from the past. Plus, we have these 1% down mortgages, might as well be 0% down for people that have less than stellar financials. So there's another one that's kind of a red flag. And like I covered the other day, you can get an FHA loan right now with a credit score as low as like 580, guys. That is a horrible credit score. And somebody who has a credit score that low either doesn't pay their bills on time, or they just have too much debt, or possibly both. So either way, so a person like that is not in a good financial position to buy a home, but they're giving people those loans. So we might not see the exact same things happening from the past, but we are seeing a lot of things that mirror it, if you ask me. We're seeing a lot of things that still make it possible for us to have a crash. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, and I'm not saying that it's going to happen tomorrow, but what I am saying is there's a lot of things that are setting us up for one right now that can easily lead us into a major crash if things continue on this trajectory. Now, the fifth reason that's often given on this, which is also kind of a lie, but let's look at it, is foreclosure activity is muted. Because they say within 3 years after the housing crash, we had millions of foreclosures that flooded the housing market that depressed prices. That's not the case right now. Most homeowners have a comfortable equity cushion in their homes, and so we don't have to worry about foreclosure, guys. Like, huh? What are you talking about? Let's see. I just talked about the other day how literally we have 147,000 people with VA loans that are delinquent on their mortgage right now that are not going to get foreclosed on in this next 6 months until they can get things figured out with that. That's already 150,000 people looking at foreclosure. According to Adam's recent data, for conventional loans, it's an additional 185,000 U.S. properties with foreclosure filings in the first half of 2023, which is a 13% increase from a year ago and a 185% increase from 2 years ago. So you're telling me there's not an uptick in foreclosure activity right now? We're just getting started, guys. At the end of November, which is right around the corner, all the foreclosure moratoriums that were in place are going to be canceled, apparently, except for this VA one that we talked about the other day. And so a lot of people that have been delaying, not paying their mortgage for the past 2 or 3 years, this is going to catch up with them. And even though they say that they're going to add these payments into the back of their loan, at any time in the future, if these people want to sell their house and meanwhile inventory keeps creeping up and home prices keep creeping a little bit down little by little, what's going to happen is those people are no longer going to have this massive equity position that people are saying that they have, because that equity position is going to be eroded by all those missed mortgage payments that they didn't pay plus interest. And so you're going to see a lot of people that had these forbearances in place eventually lose their homes to foreclosure because they're just kind of delayed the inevitable. And then if you combine that with a major economic downturn, a big recession where unemployment creeps back up to 7, 8, 9, 10%, you're going to see a lot of people listing their homes for sale out of necessity, guys. And let's not even forget about all the regular buyers and sellers that just need to move. They just have to get rid of the house because life goes on, right? So when you combine all those things with the fact that we have a lot of new construction still happening and the potential for major economic problems down the road, like, we are definitely set up for a housing crash. So it just kind of makes me laugh when they say, oh, it's impossible to have a housing crash because of X, Y, and Z. And those big 5 reasons that we just talked about are the main ones that everybody talks about. And I just pretty much debunked all of them. The only one that is still very true is the fact that inventory is still low. But all of these things are actually temporary. Inventory low, temporary. Home builders not building enough, temporary. Now sure, the demographics and the demand for people that are out there who want to buy a home isn't going to go away, but if home prices don't come down, it's like they were never there to begin with. And of course, the lending standards thing is an absolute joke because there's a lot of different ways that people can slip into getting a house right now that really shouldn't be getting into one. So even though they might not be giving people liar loans anymore, we're pretty close. And the foreclosures, well, we just talked about that. Those have been ramping up over the past few months and will continue to ramp up into 2024, probably throughout the entire year, as more and more people can't hang on anymore. They can't hang on because of their moratoriums are ending. They can't hang on because inflation has completely blown up their monthly budget, and they also can't hang on because the cost of owning the home has just gotten too high under these circumstances. And this is why it's a good time for home buyers out there to be asking for bargains and, you know, trying to sweeten the deal if you are somebody out there wanting to buy right now. And by the way, if you are a buyer or a seller in the United States, if you need a real estate agent, use my link in the description below. I can set you up with a real estate agent in your area completely for free. And if you use the service, not only does it help you, but it helps the channel, and I appreciate it. Now, obviously, whenever you're trying to negotiate on buying a house, guys, you want to try to negotiate the best price. That's kind of like a no-brainer, right? One problem right now is that home buyers are facing is people will offer what they think is kind of a reasonable price, especially based on comps, but there's some sellers that haven't quite caught up yet and haven't realized that, hey, my house isn't worth what it was 6 months ago, so I probably need to sell it for a little bit less now. But a lot of people don't want to do that. And so it makes it very hard for buyers to make a deal. As an alternative to getting a lower price, you could ask for concessions, you could ask the seller to pay your closing costs, you could ask for a credit at closing for repairs, you can ask for mortgage rate buy downs and all of this. But at the end of the day, those things complicate the contract, and a lot of real estate agents are very hesitant to do this, guys. Like, a lot of people, they don't want to send an offer with all those different contingencies because it makes it less likely that the offer is going to get accepted if a different offer comes in that doesn't have any of those contingencies, and it just looks like a better offer. It's a cleaner offer. So it is something you can try if it's a place you really want to get and the seller's not budging on the price. However, I think that under these circumstances right now, if you're looking at buying a house and the seller doesn't want to budge on the price, and there's plenty of homes for sale in your area, move on, guys. Maybe it's a different story for people that are still stuck in a very low inventory situation. But if you live in an area where inventory has steadily been on the rise, I wouldn't be giving in to their demands. I would just wait it out and go back to them in a few months and see if they're desperate, or just buy something else because there's more options now. And one point that I've been trying to hammer home on the channel is trying to kind of explain why we see this situation right now, why home prices continue to go up even though inventory is going down and buyer demand really isn't there. It kind of seems like an anomaly, and it's definitely not normal market conditions. So I figured it'd be a good opportunity to try to dive into this a little bit to see what's going on. And I'm going to use Miami as an example of this because we are basically the poster child of this story right now. So right now in Miami-Dade County, we have a median sale price of houses of $618,000, and just 1 year ago it was $575,000. So median sale prices for houses here have absolutely been going up, even in the wake of all of this madness, guys. Same thing for condos, okay? Condos went from $388,000 last year to $405,000 this year, and that's as of the October data. So all types of housing here is getting more expensive. And this is all happening simultaneously while the amount of transactions is dropping through the floor. But once again, Miami is one of these places, just like many other places, where we have not seen a recovery in inventory yet. We don't have inventory back to pre-pandemic levels yet, not even close. So what's keeping these prices going up? Let's take a look. South Florida is continuing to attract a lot of wealthy residents, and we have a lot of companies moving to the area, and it draws in workers that have deep pockets and bigger salaries that can afford to pay more than ever for these houses. And these people usually buy move-in ready homes in the trendy neighborhoods, and that pushes prices higher despite a decline in sales. Well, this is exactly what we've been seeing here in Miami on a grand scale, and what some other places have been seeing on maybe a lesser scale, but it's still happening. And this is the part I want everybody to pay attention to, because this is a national trend. It's just being amplified here in South Florida. But what is the key part of this? People that have money are the ones who are paying these crazy numbers for real estate right now, because obviously if you don't have money, you can't pay crazy money for real estate. Pretty simple concept to grasp. So therefore, what's happening is, even though we have less closed sales happening on the overall housing market, the sales that are happening are on a much higher caliber, which ends up pushing up the median home price. And this is also why, looking at median home prices is not a perfect way to measure the housing market, but it's the best we got in terms of kind of temperature checking where prices are headed. But it's not perfect, guys, and this is one way that it can kind of be artificially manipulated. And we are seeing a level of manipulation happening in the housing market, particularly with new construction, when they give all these buyers huge incentives to buy and don't actually lower the price, which artificially keeps prices higher. That's one way it's happening. But another way it's happening is because all the houses that are selling right now are on this high income level, okay? Look at the story from yesterday. The people that bought houses, okay, both couples paid big money for houses, okay? One of them was $771,000 for a house in Pennsylvania, and another one was $1.5 million for a house in Seattle. So most people will never be able to afford a house that expensive in their lifetime. But these are the houses that we're seeing getting sold right now. So it makes sense that when you see a lot of houses being sold in this price range, that the median home price in that area or throughout the entire country even continues to go up. Follow me so far? So I predict that under these current conditions that we're in with the housing market, if home sales keep dwindling, as long as we see the amount of home sales go down, then we're going to continue seeing the price of homes go up because of this very reason I just stated. And this makes perfect sense because if you think about it, inventory is still low and the amount of home sales is also low. So the prices are high because the few houses that are being sold are from people that can afford to buy at these houses at these prices and rates, right? Follow me so far? Well, when things go in the reverse direction and inventory goes up and we start seeing a lot more closed sales happen, naturally, I think we're going to see prices then come down simply because if we have a lot of inventory and we're starting to see more sales get closed, it's because housing is becoming more affordable. More people are able to jump on the homeownership bandwagon and be able to buy these homes. And eventually that will lead to prices going back up again, but there will be a time where I think prices will go down. And nobody knows when, guys. I can't give you an exact date. I can't tell you how long prices are going to go down for and exactly when it's going to start and when it's going to stop and when prices will go back up again. Nobody knows that stuff. But all we can do is look at the dynamics that we see happening today and give our best guess of where things might be going in the future. But regardless of what happens, it's been super fun making these videos for you guys and keeping you up to date with what's going on. So I just want to say thank you to everybody who watches my channel. And if you enjoyed this video, make sure you subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed already. And if you don't want to wait for my next video to come out, check out this one on the screen right over here, and I'll see you in the next one.